Thank you, Jasmine. I hope you can hear me, um, especially in the Gompa. I'm guessing people on Zoom can as well. So we're all good. So welcome back. Every time I say that, I feel like Graham Norton. Welcome back, welcome back, and thank you for joining. Some people have joined after the first session, so a very big welcome from all of us. And you haven't missed much because all we were doing was getting enlightened, and enjoying our enlightenment together. Um, well, in reality, what we were playing with was this idea of deep rest. And we did two practices, one which has a more, I guess, negation approach in which we release and then we abide in what's left, and one that is more affirmation based. So we were imagining this quality of peace and tranquility and seeing whether that would affect our experience in a positive way. And again, I'm kind of seeing generally in my work with groups and individuals a 50-50 division there. Some people do enjoy these active acts of imagination, more than they do just letting go and chilling. And there are always people who don't particularly feel connected to the active use of imagination, at least not initially. But at the end of the day, we have both of these abilities, and you could say that these two styles of relaxation are directly related to the two fundamental characteristics of the mind, which in the Tibetan tradition at least is defined as that which is clear or luminous and knowing. So cognizant, able to be aware, to register the presence of certain objects, events, and so forth. That's the knowing part. And clear or luminous, that part is described on many different levels, but one aspect of it is that our mind is capable of generating mental holograms through which we cognize reality. And of course, Geshe Namda can tell you way more about all of this, especially with regards to the academic psychology, which Buddhism has a lot of, developed in the great monastic universities of ancient India. But on a more practical note, these two styles of relaxation that we did kind of correspond to these two fundamental characteristics. In one practice, we're just aware of what's there. We're mainly just observing. In the other practice, we're actively using our imaginative quality, the quality of luminosity, and creating an experience. And in both cases, we end up, hopefully, with some degree of deep rest. So that's a big thing, at least for me. And for many people around me in pretty much every country that I've lived in, which is quite a large array. No matter where I go, people are suffering from lack of rest, especially deep rest, this kind of blue mind that I briefly mentioned in the previous session. Also, just as a technical note, in addition to the recordings, what I will later share with Jasmine so that she can share it with you will be a reference list. So I mentioned this concept of blue mind, which comes from a scientific team headed by Alexander Crosswell in California in the University of San Francisco. I'll mention a book that unpacks that. I mentioned Tulku Thondup and his practice of relaxing through imagination, and then that comes actually from his teachings on loving kindness. I'll name the book that describes that in detail. So pretty much every reference that I'm bringing up, it will be on that list if you are a person who loves references and who wants to read something in the aftermath. But right now we will be transitioning into kind of the next step, and that will be the practice of tenderness, which might be familiar for some people and a little bit new for others. Tenderness is, again, a precursor to loving kindness. And interestingly enough, it is not something that is described in the academic psychology of Buddhism. It is not listed as one of the, for example, mental factors that are the basic material of our mental cognition, mental activity. But it is mentioned in the yogic teachings, and so practices related to tenderness, or what is known in Tibetan as tsewa, form a wonderful practical foundation for the practices of the four immeasurables, the four Brahma Viharas, to which loving kindness belongs. And it's for that reason that we'll play a little bit with this quality and then start loving kindness, doing loving kindness proper. So, what is this tenderness or tsewa? It is generally a term that can be translated in many different ways. That is tsewa, and it gets translated as simply love, but that's a little confusing because there's so many things that get translated as love already. It can be translated as, again, tenderness. That's the translation that I feel really connected to. It gets translated as gentleness, as heartfelt warmth, as care, as caring. I think His Holiness the Dalai Lama often uses the term caring, and that is what he is referring to. But it basically refers to just the quality of non-indifference in our heart. This most foundational aspect of our mind that can be warm towards ourselves and other sentient beings. And it is not yet loving kindness because it doesn't necessarily represent a specific wish or a specific attitude, other than just the attitude of non-indifference itself. So it's just our foundational ability to care, which serves as the foundation for the arisal then later on of things like, or the arising later on of things like loving kindness, compassion, and so forth. And interestingly enough, even though for many of us we could say, oh, that's always naturally present in us, at least as mammals, His Holiness sometimes points that out. For us as mammals, this quality is especially important for our survival, for our procreation, for mothers to be able to nurture their babies and so forth. Even though that's naturally present, sometimes we can a little bit get disconnected from it. Or at least we sometimes lose the ability to share it widely, to share it openly, even with ourselves. So this is where practice, meditation practice, can really come to our aid. There are ways of reconnecting to this foundational heartfelt warmth and sharing it that make us feel better as the recipient and also as the person who's sharing that. And at the same time, while practicing all of that, we are creating a wonderful foundation for then applying loving kindness, compassion, etc. So that's what we're going to play with in this specific meditation. And so to do it again, if you wish, you can stretch a little bit, move around, play with your physical position, I guess, to make sure it's perfectly comfortable. And then with all of this preparation, we eventually arrive at the point of stillness. And so once again, to begin the actual practice, we bring our awareness to the body. Recognizing the sensations of the body, and in particular, noticing the contact between our body and the ground that is holding us. Allowing the stability of the earth, its vastness, its firmness, its strength, to trigger a wave of relaxation in our own body. Bringing our attention to our feet and toes, releasing the tension there. And if we wish, also recognizing the experience of peace and tranquility. And the same for our legs and the area of the pelvic floor. The same for our torso. Shoulders. And then our arms, hands, and fingers. Then, once again, our shoulders. And eventually the area of our head, which of course includes our face and our facial muscles. Then, for a little while, extending our awareness to the entire body, and either just noticing its experiences, just watching the sensations, including the sensation of our body gently expanding and contracting with each new cycle of breathing. Or, if we wish, creating the experience of peace and tranquility in the body by using our imagination in conjunction with our breath. Breathing these qualities into our every cell and into our every particle. Then, briefly recalling our highest aspirations, establishing them as the foundation for the main part of this practice, which we're about to do. And finally, with the main part of this meditation, to play with the quality of tsewa, or tenderness, bringing our awareness to ourselves as a sentient being, to ourselves as the object of our attention. First, simply being aware of ourselves as a being who's present here, who's breathing, who is experiencing physical and mental events. And then seeing what would it feel like to offer heartfelt warmth to this being, this warm, caring attention. The same kind of attention that we would offer to our best friend when they need support. Or maybe to a newborn kitten or a puppy placed in our hands, wherein we hold them, and through our touch, through our gaze, through our words maybe as well, we're projecting this feeling of gentleness and warmth, as if saying, I'm with you, you're not alone, you're gonna be okay. Now, offering this type of attention, this flavor of awareness to ourselves as a person. If we wish, we can use the breath as an ally. With each new inhalation or with each new exhalation, offering waves of this warmth to ourselves. Maybe drawing them in when we inhale, or maybe surrounding ourselves with them as we exhale. We can also use our touch, imagining and feeling that through our very hands that are touching our body, this attitude of warmth flows into our body. Through our knees and thighs, if that's where our hands are, or through our chest if we want to temporarily place our hands there. Both or just one. Allowing this tender energy to flow into our very own body. And then, without parting from that, for a little while imagining that we're offering the same attitude to all the other practitioners here, in person and online, as if we were holding a bunch of puppies or kittens and offering that warmth to all of them. So all of the individuals, all of us, could probably appreciate the sense of caring and warmth. So if offering it equally, still to ourselves, but also to others. Just for a few moments. Maybe strengthening it with each new exhalation once again, without forcing the breath. When it naturally occurs, we're sharing more and more of this tender attitude. And then for the final part of this practice, for a few moments, imagining that we're sharing this with all beings. Attending to their vulnerable hearts and to their amazing potential. To the seeds of wisdom and compassion within them. And just offering this warmth that can serve as a supportive condition for their eventual flourishing. And releasing all the images to just rest in the afterglow of this experience. Mentally dedicating its energy to our highest aspirations once again, that with which we began. And then coming back to the body to slowly start introducing some movement to it. Gently rocking back and forth, stretching our neck, reactivating our facial muscles, moving our fingers, our toes maybe as well. And then slowly concluding as we transition back into our shared physical and online space. Thank you. And this kind of little gesture that we often do at the end of any of a specific practice, where we fold our hands in the Anjali Mudra and then we bow slightly. I was always told by my mentors that kind of the significance of it is paying homage to the amazing potential within each one of us. Our own amazing potential, sort of what the Buddhist tradition refers to as Buddha nature, and science is now exploring under the term basic goodness as well, and that of others. So kind of it's very much in line with this practice in particular, because here we are offering, or we're trying to offer, this tenderness almost unconditionally, as unconditional of a manner as possible. But at the same time, there's a recognition that within each one of us, there's some potential for greater flourishing, greater development, or greater uncovering of the qualities of wisdom, kindness, generosity, patience, and so forth. And kind of both. Suzuki Roshi, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, who was one of the great patriarchs of Zen in the United States, but that affected the entire world eventually, had this famous saying, "You're already perfect, and you could always use some improvement," which is very much in line with this paradox of Buddha nature that has so many debates around it in the Buddhist tradition. But it's also very much in line with this practice. Kind of to offer tenderness to someone, you need to have a certain openness to their current state, because otherwise you'll be waiting for a very long time before that they become worthy of that tenderness. But it's also imbued with this promise for greater flourishing eventually. And I think for some of us, that's kind of where it's bringing us as query practitioners coming together. For some of us, the biggest challenge is being freely able to offer this to ourselves, right? And not to make it too dramatic of a statement, but it's just something that people share vulnerably often, in my experience, saying, yeah, through maybe all the toxicity that I've absorbed throughout my life, all the negative social conditioning, and maybe all the traumatic situations that I've experienced as well, I sometimes struggle to be tender with myself, to just offer this warmth without demanding anything of myself or without putting on social masks of whatever kind, because this tender experience requires also a certain degree of vulnerability. And in this case, it's just vulnerability with ourselves, but it's still a little bit of a struggle. But the good news is, as we keep practicing with this method, it can really do wonders. And it's not even final practice in our sequencing for today. It's just an intermediate step between deep rest and loving kindness proper. And then from this state of tenderness, which is just this basic ability to care, once again, basic warmth, it is from there that we move on into the domain of the so-called four immeasurables, as they're most often called in the Tibetan tradition, or the four Brahma Viharas, which is a more common name in the Pali tradition. In the Sanskrit tradition, there's actually a division that's drawn between the four immeasurables as a higher level and the four Brahma Viharas as a more simple or accessible level. But the Pali tradition doesn't necessarily make that distinction, and so it's just terminological differences, I guess. But the four states themselves would be quite familiar to many people, because they've become increasingly popular even outside of Buddhism in the mindfulness-centered or compassion-centered modalities for contemplative practice. And these are loving kindness or love, compassion, empathetic joy, sometimes also called sympathetic joy or just joy, and equanimity. Four types of kindness that are all, if we use this concept of tseva, actually arising out of this fundamental ability to care. It is for this reason that tseva is introduced as an element in our practice. We train in this basic warmth so that it creates a potent field for loving kindness and compassion and empathetic joy and equanimity to arise. Without this training in tseva, without some play with tseva, sometimes our practices of loving kindness and compassion can be a little dry, or feel a little cerebral, I guess. We're just mentally reciting, yes, may you be happy with loving kindness, or may you be free from suffering, with compassion. But it's as if this element of feeling is absent to a certain degree. This element of deeper connection or deeper warmth. So it's for that reason that we also included tseva to a certain degree into this array of practices that we're playing with collectively. And also great for community building, again, because you're just sending waves of warmth towards each other. So before long, you'll all be best friends. But now we'll move on to the next practice in which we combine tseva with loving kindness proper. And for those who are maybe not familiar with this or are familiar but would love a reminder, loving kindness, or maitri in Sanskrit, metta in Pali, jampa in Tibetan, here is defined as the wish for sentient beings to be happy and have the causes of happiness. The wish for sentient beings to flourish in this experience of genuine well-being and to have the causes of that genuine well-being. This last part about the causes is most frequently added in the Indo-Tibetan tradition in particular, but is not always used by the other lineages. So the idea there is to on the basis of our fundamental caring, on the basis of our warmth, to generate this wish and to abide in it sustainably, while also gradually extending it to more and more and more beings until eventually we are able to offer it to all beings at the same time with equal intensity. And that's when it becomes immeasurable loving kindness, which can serve as the foundation also for profound states of concentration, or shamatha, or samadhi. So that's kind of how it's originally or historically presented in many lineages, including that of Tibet. And we play with this by entering meditation, relaxing, establishing a good motivation, and then generating those wishes for ourselves, for others, eventually for all sentient beings. That's what we're going to play with. So if you still need a couple of moments to stretch, please stretch. And then we'll jump straight into this meditation, now combining tsewa and jampa, tenderness and loving kindness, for ourselves and, to a certain degree, a little bit for others as well. Also, as a side note, while we're doing that, a couple of years ago, we had, I guess 3 years ago now, I had the great joy of recording a course on the Four Immeasurables with Jamyang, and Jamyang very generously shares those recordings openly with anyone who wants to explore them, and that includes 16 classes on the Four Immeasurables, so 4 per each immeasurable, 4 for loving kindness, 4 for compassion, and so forth. So for the folks who are online already, I'll just share that link in the chat, and for others, Jasmine would be able to share it later with you if you're interested in playing with it. Record it in the same meditation hall that you're in right now, so right there. So now, arriving at where we're at, arriving at our seat, noticing ourselves being grounded, and eventually jumping straight into the meditation. To begin the practice, we connect to the ground that is holding us mentally. We feel the firmness and the stability underneath our own body. And we invite the experience of peace and tranquility into our body, either by just letting go of the tension or by actively imagining that the energy of peace and tranquility is entering our every cell and every particle. And so first, this happens to our feet and toes. Then the entire lower half of our body. The space of our torso. Shoulders, upper arms, forearms, hands, fingers, all the way down to the fingertips. And finally, our face. Softening the muscles and experiencing a degree of peace and tranquility right there in our own facial features. Then, bringing to mind our highest aspirations once again to establish them as the foundation of this practice. May it contribute to these high goals, these beautiful goals being realized for ourselves and for others. And then, to play with the qualities of tenderness and loving kindness, we bring our attention to ourselves. To ourselves as a being, a person. Someone with a stream of experiences, physical and mental. First, imagining that we're holding ourselves in this fundamental attitude of warmth, non-indifference, caring, tenderness. Offering it to ourselves with each exhalation or with each inhalation, through the sense of touch and mainly through our awareness itself. As if we were looking at our best friend who needs support and encouragement. And then, to turn it into loving kindness, recognizing that we are not yet experiencing the totality of happiness that is potentially possible. There's greater degrees of well-being that can still be achieved. More causes of happiness to accumulate or create. And why not? May I be happy and have the causes of happiness. Mentally offering this wish to ourselves. Holding it in our mind, and if we wish, also breathing life into this wish with each natural exhalation. May I be happy and have the causes of happiness. When our mind gets distracted, when we lose it, we come back to the wish and we generate it again, again mentally saying and feeling, may I be happy and have the causes of happiness. And then again and again and again, maintaining this flow, the flow of this wish. As if we were blessing our physical and mental energy again and again, programming it so that it can eventually flourish. And then, without losing touch with this, with loving kindness for ourselves, inseparable also from tenderness, starting to gently extend it to others, first maybe to those practicing with us right now, or those around us physically. Each and every sentient being around us can also flourish to a greater degree, find greater happiness. And so, while holding this entire circle of beings in a sense of warmth and caring, we can also start wishing, may we be happy and have the causes of happiness. Coming back to this wish again and again, maybe strengthening it with each exhalation if we wish. And primarily just maintaining the flow of it, as if blessing the bodies and minds of all the beings in the circle that we chose. May we be happy and have the causes of happiness. And just for a short while, if we wish, also playing with the immeasurable level of loving kindness in which all beings are included in this large circle of benevolence. So, extending our warmth to all, or opening it up boundlessly, and then wishing may all beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. And again, maintaining that as a flow. And gently releasing the images, the wishes, the thoughts, to simply rest in the afterglow of all that, the aftertaste. And then mentally dedicating the energy of our practice to our highest aspirations once again, and to the happiness and well being for all who live. Coming back to the body and slowly introducing some movement to it. And eventually concluding the practice. Thank you. And this is where, again, I think there's value in personal reflection if you prefer journaling or just reflecting quietly, or in a little bit of community sharing, I guess. And I can be done in twos for those who have someone around them to talk to, or in the breakout groups. Or we can do it in the chat here on Zoom. If you're online, just sharing it with the entire online collective, I guess. That's also an option. And what I would invite, again, folks to share by just breaking up into twos, and this time choose a different person around you, if you're in the Gompa, is just your experience with these two practices. If you wish to also touch upon the practices of deep rest, totally fine. But primarily tenderness and how it felt for you, and loving kindness and how it felt for you. And you might have been using these methods for decades, or this might be your first time doing them. Regardless of it, there's freshness in the experience probably. And it always feels different depending on so many different factors. So there's always something fresh to share. So just 4 minutes per person, I guess, if you are doing it with someone else, or 8 minutes to journal. And how did these practices of tenderness and loving kindness feel for me right now? What came up? What did I feel? What aspirations came up also, maybe? So just that. And if you need Jasmine's help, please raise your hand or wave. But otherwise, if you're in the Gompa, just turn to each other, choosing a new partner this time if possible. And yeah, just share how it felt for each one of you. So possible also to do breakout groups once again here on Zoom, or just to journal if you prefer. Thank you. And after that, we'll take our lunch break, I believe. So enjoy these moments of communication, and we'll have a deeper discussion after lunch.